A while back, I traveled up to Owen Sound for the funeral of a young colleague who died in a tragic motorcycle accident. During the 2.5 hour drive, I couldn't help wondering what life is all about. The stunning reality of the death of someone so young reminds us just how very fragile life is. As I drove north, the weather began to turn. So by the time I reached Blue Mountain, the wind was really howling. Driving along the shore of Lake Huron, I could see waves rising. I'd been driving for over an hour, so I decided to pull over and take a walk before the rain began. Staring out over Nottawasaga Bay toward the vast gray horizon, I felt very small and insignificant. My mind wandered as my face was pelted by the sand which was kicked up by the wind. The sensation of the sand hitting my face awakened me to the reality that we are dust, and to dust we shall return. As my mind wandered, I caught sight of a small tuft of grass bent over by the force of the wind. The long grass embodied my feeling of fragility, as it was laid almost parallel to the beach by the strength of the wind pummeling it with sand. I thought about the Ruach, the wind, the breath, the spirit of divinity, the power and the majesty of the Ruach as it blows where it wills, pelted by the wind, the sand, and the reality of death. The fragility of my own being struck me to my core as a deep, loud no rose up from my inner being. It was as much a plea to the Ruach as it was a staunch denial of the reality of the fragility of life. No, I shouted into the horizon. But the Ruach, the wind and the sand, threw my no back in my face as my tears mixed with the rain which began to fall. The wind must have changed direction, because when I looked back at the tuft of fragile grass, it was standing tall even as the rain's intensity increased. I took a long, deep intake of breath. It was as if the very Ruach of divinity entered my being. I wiped my tears and the rain from my face. I straightened up my spine, and I walked back to the car, ready to face the reality of our mortality, strengthened by the knowledge that I had encountered mystery, the mystery which is the source of all. The Bible is full of stories which touch the deepest mystery of life. The ancients knew that eternal truths are best communicated through stories. So we plumb the depths of our scriptures, parables, myths, and similes to discover our reality. Memories, stories, imaginings, myths, wonderings, and glimpses are the stuff of truth. We human creatures, we just can't help wondering, how did we get here? Who made us? Why were we made? Why are we here? Where are we going? We humans can't seem to help wondering, what's it all about? From days of old, we've been sitting around campfires, weaving tales about how we came to be and what it's all about, speculating on the nature of our Creator. Story after story has been told, stories which weave in and out between our experiences and our wonderings. What's real? What's not? What's true? And what are imaginings? The best stories, the ones which capture our imagination and stimulate our wonderings, those stories were told over and over again, handed down from one generation to the next. Some stories so profound that they just had to be written down. Elevated to the realm of the sacred, these wonderings took on the qualities of myth. Sacred truth so precious that over the years some have sought to defend these stories with their very lives. Others have built their world around these sacred truths, found their identity between the lines of their imaginings. Still others have feared the very wonderings which birthed these sacred truths. So afraid have they become that they have tried to insist that these sacred truths aren't even ours, but rather the divine ramblings of the mystery we call God, whispered into the ears of scribes who jotted them down word for word in the King's English, no less, holding between their lines not only sacred truths, but perfectly preserved history? So treasured are these sacred truths that some even claim that between their lines lie the foretelling of our future. So treasured are these sacred truths that the questioning of even the slightest detail has the power to set one tribe or nation against another. From the storytellers of old to the recesses of our imaginations, the character of Moses has cast a spell on generations of wanderers and wanderers. All Moses wanted to do was to see God in all of God's glory. Moses, who, as the story goes, had been talking with God for years. He'd staked his whole life and the lives of his kinfolk, the lives of his people, on those conversations. Moses wanted to actually see God in all God's glory. Who can blame Moses? Wandering out there in the wilderness, trying to juggle the needs of a people lost, homeless, and afraid, hoping against hope that there was a land of milk and honey out there somewhere. Moses had the stone tablets, God's written law, written in stone, a gift for his people who'd followed him out into the wilderness. Imagine, they followed Moses out into the wilderness all because Moses had heard God speak. Right there, from out of the flames of a burning bush, God called out to Moses. The God of Moses' ancestors spoke, and a promise was born. The promise of liberation from slavery, of deliverance from oppression, the promise of a land, a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Such a promise required more than just the ramblings of a burning bush. Such a promise required a name. Who was this God speaking from the flames? Moses said to God, "If I come to the Israelites and I say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is God's name?' what shall I say to them?" From that burning bush came the sacred name when his God said to Moses, "Yahweh, I am who I am. Yahweh, I shall be who I shall be." Yahweh, the sacred name of God, so sacred that Moses and his people would never utter it, so sacred that even after they'd told their stories for generations, they'd punctuate the name of God with only a silence. A long pause where people could breathe the name within themselves. So sacred that when it came time to write down their sacred stories, they didn't write the whole name of God. Just the consonants were enough to evoke the sacred name. Yah, Va, Yeah. Over the generations, the people forgot how to breathe the name of God, and so the scribes hinted at the vowels so that the breath of God continued to emanate from God's people. But as the tribes fought over the details of the story, the sacred code of silence failed to evoke the breath of God, and even though from the burning bush God was said to have declared, "This is my name forever, and this is my title for all generations," the peoples of God forgot the sacred name. So the scribes replaced the sacred code of silence with bold letters which included the vowels, and once again the name of Yahweh was heard when the sacred stories were told. Yahweh, I am who I am, or I will be who I will be. It says it all. God is. God will be now and forever. This ought to be enough. But wouldn't you want more? Surely we can understand why Moses asked for just a little more. There's no harm in asking, so good old Moses gave it a whirl. Come on, just once. Show me your glory, I pray. And the Mighty One said, I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim before you the holy name. And I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will show mercy on whom I will show mercy. But, said the Mighty One, you cannot see my face, for no one shall see me and live. And the Mighty One continued, see, there is a place by me where you shall stand on the rock, and while my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft of the rock, and I will cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will take away my hand, and you shall see my back, but my face shall not be seen. And so Moses caught but a glimpse of Yahweh's backside. Just a glimpse, mind you. But isn't that how it always is? Just a glimpse. Just a glimpse of divinity here and there, for our God shall be who our God shall be. We must let the glimpses be enough. But oh, those glimpses. When I arrived at the funeral, I was greeted by friends and colleagues as we began the task of preparing ourselves to pay our respects and to give thanks for the life of one of our own. In the faces of friends and colleagues, I caught glimpses of the one who is the source of our being. In their tender embraces, I felt the grace and the compassion of the mystery we call God. Later, in the stories we told one another, the love which is divinity soothed and nurtured us. Sitting around a table, breaking bread with one another, I felt a deep, heartfelt yes rising within me. Yes, I raised a glass and I gave thanks for life. Even though I'm not sure that I would live to tell the tale, I'd still love to see the face of divinity. But for now, I'll settle for a glimpse of divinity's backside. For now, all we see is a glimpse of divinity's glory. But oh, those glimpses. Once you catch a glimpse, you'll never forget it. So close your eyes. I mean it, close your eyes. There. Look closely. Can you see a glimpse of divinity in your mind's eye? The first time you knew you were in love? And there in your beloved's eyes, you saw but a glimpse. Or standing there holding that beautiful child for the first time, gazing into the wonder you held in your arms. There was but a glimpse. Look down on the page between the lines of that poem that told you your whole life in just a few carefully chosen words. There's the hand of divinity. Look, look, there she goes. She just learned how to ride her bike all by herself. She's growing up so quickly. Do you see? Right there behind her, there in the shadows, watching her. If you look closely, you will see the arms of divinity ready to catch her. Look at him. He thinks he knows it all. There he goes with the keys to your car. In the screech of tires, can you hear it? It's the sound of the love which is divinity, trying to catch up with him, trying to keep him safe. Listen carefully. Can you hear it? It's ever so faint. The rattle of her last breaths makes it difficult to hear. But if you listen carefully, you'll hear the Ruach, the Spirit, breathing alongside her as she breathes her last breath. As you struggle to leave the room, wondering how you can ever find a way to say goodbye. Goodbye, Grandma. Goodbye, Grandpa. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, my love. If you lean back, you will feel them embracing you, the arms of divinity holding you in love. Look there. God is in that smile, the smile that says, I've known you so long, and yes, I still love you, even if you drive me nuts. There in the gleam of your lover's eyes, can you see the glory of the love which is divinity? Gaze out into the fields and see there amongst the wildflowers, there dashing by through the trees, trudging up the hills, hiking over the mountains. If you look closely, you'll see divinity's backside. There's truth in our stories, sacred truth. Truth in our myths, truth in our wonderings, our musings, and our longings. Between the lines, beyond the page, in, with, through, and under the words, there's truth in questions and questions in truth, and through it all dances our God who is love. Yahweh. If you open your eyes and look around, you'll catch a glimpse of Yahweh, whose backside is more beautiful than words can say. Words may fail us, but we will keep trying to describe the wonder, the beauty, the magnificence of Yahweh's glory. That's just the kind of creatures we are. So proclaim Yahweh's glory. Let the divinity of your imagination, myth, and story take on flesh and dance with your memories of Yahweh's backside. Delight in the knowledge that all our wonderings pale in comparison to the splendor of the mystery which is the love we call God, Yahweh. Yahweh, the great I am, our lover, beloved, and love itself. Amen.